Glad everybody's finally catching up to me. 2 weeks ago, I said that the Chinese were behind these drones on the East Coast, New Jersey. I said that they were checking out, they were at Langley months and months ago. They're going over military bases. They're flying over the busiest corridor in the whole world, the Northeast airline corridor there. I said this 2 weeks ago, that the Biden administration is looking the other way because they're doing just like they did with the balloon. They're looking the other way. And then surprise, surprise, the last couple of days, we get information that backs up my story. Let's check this out. This is Night God 333.
What up, Night God crew? Y'all ain't gonna believe the new development in the New Jersey drone situation, and that it's tied to the Tesla Cybertruck explosion in Vegas. The suspect, Matthew Livelsberger, was a former Green Beret in the Special Forces of the U.S. Army. He served from 2006 to 2011, and he was part of a number of tours from Afghanistan to Africa to Tajikistan. After being relieved from active duty in 2011, he went on to be in the National Guard from 2011 to 2012. And in December 2012, he went back to active duty. He returned to active duty as a U.S. Army Special Operations soldier and was assigned to the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. In addition to his combat roles, Livelsberger held positions that involved advanced technological and operational responsibilities. His expertise extended to overseeing drone operations and maintenance, highlighting his proficiency in integrating advanced technologies into the military and its strategies. It was initially thought that the explosion was a terrorist attack, but this may not be the case. Before the January 1st explosion, Mr. Livelsberger sent numerous emails to Sean Ryan, and he sent the absolute bombshell email to former intelligence officer Sam Shoemate. Sam also advocates for whistleblowers and their protection. The email reads as follows: "In case I do not make it to my decision point or on to the Mexican border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until January 1st and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a black 2006 Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems powered aircraft by most recently China in the East Coast. But throughout history, only we in China have this capability. Our open location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic and from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it is just a show of force, and they are using it similar to how they use the balloon SIGINT and ISR. SIGINT means signal intelligence, and ISR means intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, which are also part of the integrated comm system. There are dozens of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They are the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. The US government needs to give the history of this, how we are employing it and weaponizing it, how China is employing them, and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere in the East Coast. I've been followed for over a week, now from likely Homeland or FBI. They are looking to move on me and are unlikely going to let me cross into Mexico, but won't because they know I am armed and I have a massive VBID. A VBID is a vehicle-based IED bomb. For vetting, my LinkedIn is Matt Berg, or Matthew Livelsberger. An active duty 18 Zulu, out of 1 to 10, my profile is public. I have an active top secret security clearance with UAP and USAP access. I'd like to point out that none of this email has been confirmed. The only fact that has been confirmed is that, yes, it was written by Matthew Livelsberger himself. And this is per the Vegas PD. Check it out.
Behind you.
That's Kevin Knives with NBC News. How would you describe his state of mind in these final days, given everything that you read from his notes app and the manifesto that you see that you referenced going around in the podcast? Have you guys been able to rule out that it was not from him, or is it still up in the air that it could have been from him?
So the question is, how would I describe his state of mind in the manifesto that was described on the podcast? Have we been able to determine whether that was from him or not? And I'll answer the first part is, I'm not comfortable giving you state of mind just yet. I certainly am leaning a particular way. But again, I'd like to be factual to you. I think when you read the documents that we're going to give you a link to at the end of this press conference, that you can go in and make some of your own assumptions about what that is. But I will tell you that part of my hesitation on that is, I know that we have a lot more documents and number of things for us to uncover. And so I want to be able to provide to you only the factual information when I have it. And so I'm not going to opine on what I believe his state of mind was at that particular time. But certainly you can see some troubling aspects in his personal life as well. And I don't know if you want to address the second part, Spencer.
Yeah, so in terms of the so-called manifesto that's circulating online, we have strong evidence to suggest that it was the subject that wrote it, but we haven't conclusively proven that yet. And that evidence relates to other evidence that we're finding that we're able to compare that lead us to believe it was in fact him who sent it.
I have knowledge of this program and also war crimes that were covered up during airstrikes in Nimruz province, Afghanistan in 2019 by the admin, DOD, DEA, and CIA. I conducted targeting for these strikes of over 125 buildings. 65 were struck because of civilian casualties that killed hundreds of civilians in a day. U.S. FORA continued strikes after spotting civilians on the initial ISR. It was supposed to take 6 minutes and scramble all aircraft in the central communications. The UN basically called these war crimes, but the administration made them disappear. I was part of that cover-up with U.S. FORA and Agent Redacted of the DEA, so I don't know if my abduction attempt is related to either. I worked with Jen Miller's 10 staff on this as well as the response to the Bala Merg. AOBS commander can validate this. You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation. Apparently China and the US have gravitic drones, UAPs capable of being launched from submarines or by ship, and they can apparently carry one heck of a payload. Does that mean that there aren't aliens? No. But the Chinese have apparently been using this tech since the early 2000s, and the United States even before that. Again, this can't be verified absolutely, but nevertheless, it's looking like it is the case. Now he at one point also says in the beginning the coordinates for the operation center, and that was at Groom Lake, aka Area 51. Check it out. It's also mentioned on the Sean Ryan show that there's a good chance he may have faked his death so he could elude the men that were after him for whistleblowing. Now, before I go, I'd like to go over some of Mr. Livelsberger's credentials and awards while in service. He had a Bronze Star Medal with Valor, Bronze Star Medal, 4 awards, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal with Value, Army Commendation Medal, 3 awards, Army Achievement Medal, 2 awards, Army Good Conduct Medal, 5 awards, National Defense Services Medal, Afghan Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, 3 awards, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Non-Commissioned Officer Professional Development Ribbon, 3 awards, Army Service Ribbon, Overseas Service Ribbon, NATO Medal, 2 awards, Special Forces Tab, Combat Infantryman Badge, Parachutist Badge, Freefall Badge. So needless to say, y'all, dude has a pile of credentials and a pile of awards. He's a seasoned veteran in the military. Green Berets are some of the elite of our military. They're up there with the Navy SEALs. So this man was knowledgeable and he knew what he was doing. If he wanted to, his uncle was quoted as saying if he wanted to, he could have blown up half that hotel. Not just put a couple propane tanks in a Tesla. Now let's keep in mind, why would he use a Tesla and blow that up? Well, because they're supposedly bulletproof. They may keep the explosion contained because he didn't want to hurt anybody. Also, Teslas drive themselves. I've read that he was already in New Mexico when the explosion took place that morning. So because Teslas drive themselves, but they need hands on the steering wheel in order to do so, he set it up, had the hands on the steering wheel of whatever he used. Then he preset the route to drive itself in front of Trump Towers sit there for a moment. He made sure the coast was clear. Then he set the charge remotely from a long ways away. That, and on the Sean Ryan show, they said that the DNA of the victim didn't match his own son's. Well, whoever was investigating it thought, oh, he must have crashed out because his wife had an affair. But anybody who does this or knows how to look at these situations, my first thought was, oh, well, yeah, he faked it. He faked his death to hide from authorities, I guess. The other tell was the fact that all of his identification went unburnt. It was more or less saved in the fire. He must have put them in a spot where he knew that they wouldn't burn completely. So all that identification pointed to him as well. Perfect setup. Then there's video of him at charging stations along the way. He had to stop at like 7 or 8 charging stations. And every time he did, he wore a headlamp. And when you look at a camera with a headlamp on, there's no way to tell who that person is when they have a headlamp on. It basically whitewashes the entire camera. So he had that on the whole time as well. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, dude. This guy is a true professional. They trained him, and probably as an asset, he cost them millions of dollars to train. He was a Green Beret. He was active duty pretty much his entire career. This guy was a genius. He was the director of drone operations, for Pete's sake. So he knew this was coming down on him. He knew his life was in the balance. Now, this is all just alleged. Crazy stuff, though. Very interesting story. What do I think? Well, you guys know me by now. So the Chinese and the US have drones with anti-gravity or gravitic propulsion technology. That is insane, y'all. And I had a funny feeling because they had lights that were adherent to our aviation standard, they were man-made, there's no doubt about it. But I do believe, without a doubt, that aliens exist, and I think they are monitoring this situation because they always do when it gets heated like this. But just imagine those drones and imagine the horrifying reality that those are going to be used in the next war. That is horrifying, y'all. I couldn't imagine something like that just terrorizing our citizens. That's a strong threat if it is, in fact, China, to bring your drones, unmanned, anti-gravity drones, and hang them over the United States and its people. I would sure hope that if that's the case, we did the same to them, because this is crazy. It doesn't need to go this way. I hope you all gained insight about the current situation there. There's obviously more, but I just wanted to get this video together and get it out. So let me know if you hear anything else in the comments. I'd love to hear you guys' opinions. What do you think? Did he actually fake his own death? Is he still alive? Or was that really him? Do you believe that these are Chinese and United States-based anti-gravity UAPs? So that's about all I had on that crazy situation. I just had to share when he enlightened us as to what the drones potentially could.
So, I was told that this video had some awesome information in it. I've also heard of the Sean Ryan video. I was ahead of this by many, many weeks. 2 weeks ago, I put out a video saying that these drones were Chinese, that they were over bases, they were shutting down airports, they were checking out response times. I said that. Go check that video out. And then in the last video I did on the New Orleans attack, I talked about how I insinuated about how the Teslas can drive themselves. And so I insinuated that perhaps this guy, that the story wasn't correct, that this guy wasn't really at the wheel of this Tesla. And in the manifesto that this guy wrote, he wrote that there was an attempted abduction. So if we to take this email at face value, this guy has information that the administration, the administration before Trump and the current regime, I won't call it administration, the current resident of the White House was vice president for the guy before Trump. So if this guy has information on war crimes and things of that nature, they might be cutting ties with everybody. We've seen throughout the last few months people getting terminated, whistleblowers, whether they be for AI or Boeing or federal or FBI. They are getting messed with. They are passing away in weird circumstances. In this guy's email, he said that there was an abduction attempt. He said that he'd been followed for a week or more by FBI, Homeland Security. This guy knows what's up. If he's a whistleblower and they're coming around, he's got to assume that they're going to take him out. So, he knows about Waco. Those guys were working with the CA, the Waco people, when they got terminated. So he knows when they start going to clean up. He knows what happens to the people that have information. He's saying there was an abduction attempt, and if that's the case, it obviously wasn't successful. So we have to wonder if he talks about his tradecraft. Sean Ryan talked about that as well. Sean Ryan also was wondering if this guy was still alive. It looks like that he is. If they tried to get him and it didn't work out, if they sent one person or whatever, who that tried to get the drop on him and didn't, who is that? Whose body is that really in the Tesla? I'm just putting it out there. I'm not gonna say what, this, that, and the other, but I'm just saying this thing is becoming a crazy, crazy story now. And I was all over this. I knew it was China. I knew the current administration was looking the other way, and I'm very sure it's China. I know it's China. I think they're bluffing. I think that just now that they've seen how the election goes, they're doing all this stuff. They're trying to flex, like this guy was saying, to tell Trump he better not, do anything. And, China may be telling their operatives here in the United States, Hillary Clinton, and others, that they better step up their game or bad things are going to happen. They're flexing. They've got drones all over the place. But I think they're bluffing. The current regime is trying to start a war. NATO's trying to start a war. China is acting like they want to go to war, and Trump is not going to take the bait. Putin hasn't taken the bait. They've been trying to provoke him into a conflict, and he has not taken the bait. Trump will not take the bait. All he's got to do is, once he gets into office, is let out information about this last epidemic that got released and show who did it, and China will be destroyed. That's an act of war on the world. All Trump has to do is show that they did this on purpose, and everybody will not trade with them. And the people that are bitching about the tariffs will be okay with 100% tariffs or more once they find out the evil regime that China is, that they released this thing on purpose. Now, they had help with the United States. The Chinese can't find their butts with both hands. If they have this technology, this drone technology, this vaccine technology, it was all given to them by traders in the West. I was just about to do an episode on these advanced drones that they had. They might be even plasmas. So Clay Morris of Redacted just did an interview with a physicist, I can't remember his name right now, that was talking about Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff is a high-level military scientist. He was involved with SRI, Stanford Research Institute. He was also involved with Stargate, the psychic program that the CIA and the military was using and developing. But he's also got patents. He's a physicist, plasma physicist, lasers, got patents in this area. And this physicist that was talking to Clay Morris was talking about how Hal Puthoff had put out a patent for communicating with plasmas. So these plasma drones may be under control, and there may be a communication device that can make these plasma type deals maneuver under control remotely. And they don't even have to use radio waves. They might use some type of superliminal quantum physics mode to communicate with them. So I was just about to do a video on that, but this obviously is of bigger news and is connected. This guy says that he worked with UAPs, so he may have knowledge of Chinese UAPs. He might have been briefed on that. He also said he's been read in on USAPs. Night God didn't say what that is, but that's special access programs. So that's top secret, top level stuff. I just did a video on the Chinese 6th gen fighter, and in that video I talked about how they may be using B2 technology, capacitor, electromagnetic propulsion, gravitic technology. I'm so far ahead of everybody else. I'm so glad everybody's catching up to me. Because this needs to get out. This is stuff I've studied for 30 years. He talked about how China and the U.S. are the only two that have that technology, but that's not currently correct. Germany, back in the 30s, was working on this stuff. As a matter of fact, in 1945, U.S. airmen were seeing craft, lights, but also smaller orb type things that were running around over the skies, and they called them Foo fighters. Foo for French, the French word feu. They called them Foo fighters, and because they were basically balls of fire, balls of light, or whatever. So this technology has been out for a long time. The Nazis developed it, and like I said, the air crews called them Foo fighters. The Germans were developing this stuff in the 40s and 50s. The United States knew about it and was trying to catch up in the 60s, 70s. Finally, in the 80s, it looks like they got a secret space program up, and that's probably why Trump created the Space Force to be a liaison between a fleet that was already out in space and terrestrial forces here. So China may be flexing. They may have drones, but I don't think they have a platforms and space craft out in the solar system like the United States and potentially former German military types do as well. So very, very interesting. This is like a real Rambo story. In the movie Rambo, the early 80s, Sylvester Stallone did that movie where a Green Beret was being harassed by law enforcement, and he basically went, they effed around and they found out. Rambo got unleashed on these guys and basically wiped them all out, or could have. And then he escaped, and if he wanted to, he could have just escaped, and he looked like he was unalived. But this looks like a real-life Rambo story where this guy was a Green Beret, part of special operations deals, and they tried to pull a fast one on him. They effed around and found out. This is pure speculation, but this is kind of what it looks like. What a story that would be. And then this guy potentially fakes his own death. Now, I think what he's going to try to do is run to Trump. And I would be all for that. In his emails and in his communications, he was trying to get a hold of Sean Ryan and others and Pete Hegseth. It's a shame he didn't get in touch with him. They might have been able to bring him in. So, like he said, you can't make this up. We are living in very interesting times. Please like, share, and subscribe. I have been all over this, way ahead of this. I'm glad everybody else is catching up. I've been studying this for 30 years. Everyone told me I was crazy, but I knew better. And now it's all coming out into the light. It's all coming out into the news. The current administration is looking the other way. China knows that they're not going to do anything about it, because if they do, then they will have to admit that they have not been doing anything about these Chinese drones and probes over sensitive military bases and airports. So That's it. We're going to get on out of here. We'll see you on the next Ultra Top Secret. If you've made it this far, please like, share, and subscribe.